What's up, Project Church? We want to welcome you today for another evening conversation, today with just Chrissy and I. So if you are online, jumping online right now, thank you. We want to say what's up to everybody on YouTube, Facebook. We're doing these every other week, little conversations on different topics. And then the other weeks, every other week, how does that work? I don't know.
Every other week.
We're doing worship. So we actually want to invite you guys next Wednesday. We're going to be having live prayer and worship in our building downstairs, right below us. So we'd love to have you come join us at 7 p.m. It's 1 hour prayer and worship. So that's next week. But thanks for jumping online with us tonight. Chrissy and I actually wanted to kind of continue the conversation from Sunday. We're in the middle of a series that we're calling Dreamers. And last week we kicked it off with the series, or the title, called It's Time to Dream Again, really calling our church in a season of discouragement to shift to dreaming. And I think that all of us have sensed the discouragement of this season, but I thought it'd be cool to start with something positive. So
Yeah. But
there's
hey,
been a lot of discouragement.
right.
What has been the most encouraging thing for you in this season?
I will say that just because I had this group this morning, but community groups have been an incredible blessing to me.
Ooh, and a good plug right now.
Yes,
Go, girl.
That's exactly where I was going. Well, I was so encouraged this morning. We laughed, we cried, and everything in between. And we just talked about the word, and we talked about this idea and this concept of dreaming. And according to Acts 2, which is where we're coming from, but if you didn't listen to the message this past Sunday, we encourage you to do so. If not, you can still even jump into a community group and have that conversation, because our community groups have questions and conversations revolving around the content from Sunday. So I was super blessed this morning from community group and talking about this. And gosh, in a season where everyone can be so divided physically, Zoom has been a huge blessing. It's been a curse for some people too. People are very Zoom fatigued, but man, community group this morning was awesome.
I'm somewhat over it, but I get it.
I love you girls. If you're watching, shout out to Wednesday Morning Girls.
I get it. In this season, it's been a great way to keep us connected. So we do want to invite you, if you are not in a group and you're watching this, whether you're a part of our church or not, we actually have had people from other states jumping in our groups, which is awesome. You could text right now, Project Groups, all one word, to 97000 and you'll get a link with all the groups. You could sign up for a group. We have a lot online. We do have a few that are starting to meet in person again. And so find one near you that works for you. We'd love for you to engage with us. So I think that for us tonight, we want to talk about dreaming. So as you're watching, make sure you're commenting. Throw us some emojis in the chat. If something speaks to you, hit that heart button. Actually, do us a favor and click the share button right now. If you're watching this live, click share on Facebook so some people can jump in and engage in this conversation with us. But
what was the most encouraging thing for you? You asked me the question.
In this season, because again, on Sunday, we really kicked it off by saying, look, this has been a season of discouragement. It's felt like so much discouragement. And I got fixated on the discouragement. Especially the first few months, my wife will tell you, that I was just really fixated on all the negative, the discouragement. And I think naturally as human beings, our inclination is to latch on to that which isn't going our way, that which is negative, that which is discouraging. And we just surround ourselves with that energy, with that perspective, rather than, what the word tells us, which is taking those thoughts captive to think about whatever is lovely, whatever is good, whatever is, all these things, whatever is good report, true, that is what we should be focusing on. But our flesh wants to focus on the wrong, the bad, the negative, the discouraging. And so we really felt like this message and this series was calling the church to not be a people of discouragement, but of dreaming, believing for better, believing for the future. Even in this politically charged season, it's like even the messaging from Christians, it's all negative about to vote for. Like, there's nothing like, I don't see anything positive like, we're going to vote for this person because of this. It's, we're going to vote for this person because it's not this.
Right.
Right? And that's on both sides.
Yeah.
And so even the messaging right now politically is negative.
Right.
And discouraging.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're going to vote for this person because if we don't, then the world's going to get worse.
Right.
Then our country's going to implode. Then the economy's going to tank.
Right.
Then racial division's going to increase. And I'm just like, that messaging, while fear is a powerful tool, I don't think it's as powerful as hope and dreaming.
Right. I mean, and I think that's interesting that you should say this about just our society, because I think we become more divided and we get focused on the division, and we don't recognize that the discouragement has brought us to this point of division. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I want to ask you, how does discouragement affect you? Because I know in our marriage, when he's discouraged, or if I'm discouraged, let's just make this straight though first. I tend to be at glass half full, right?
No. My joke is that Chrissy is a glass overflowing person.
Or 3/4 full. I won't give myself that much credit.
Overflowing. With Chrissy, everything is always sunshine, rainbows, and ponies.
Okay, I don't really like ponies. But what I'm trying to get at is that in our marriage, sometimes discouragement divides us. But then what I want to get back to the root in, for instance, during COVID, in the beginning of our marriage, in the beginning of COVID, I remember getting in an argument and we were divided, but it had nothing to do with what we were arguing about. It had everything to do with what he was discouraged about. So I guess I'm asking you, how do you feel, what has discouragement, what are the negative impacts of discouragement on us? And on you personally?
Well, I think the negative impacts, number one is division. You already touched on it. It divides us politically. It divides us personally, interpersonally.
Yeah.
I mean, me being discouraged divided even our home, divided our marriage. We weren't to the point of full division, but I mean, it drove a wedge because I was walking in a state and a mindset of discouragement, which is not a unifying thing.
Right.
It's not something that, as a wife who, we still believe in biblical order, even in the household, and my wife will gladly say like, hey, I follow you.
He's the head of the house.
I'm not a leader to be followed.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking from and walking in a state and a mindset of discouragement and negativity, which is why I think we're having such a hard time following either of these political candidates right now. I wasn't intending on going political with it, but because it's the messaging is a messaging of discouragement and negativity.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me want to really get behind anyone, which is why I think that right now no one's that excited
Right. And it's
about either candidate, and even if you do fall more left or right, it's more like it's about not that person rather than for this person, which is unfortunate. But that's the state we're in. But I think your question was, what does it do to us, right? And I think that number one, it divides us. So it divided us for a little season. I think number two, it gets our focus on the wrong things. And then we fixate on the wrong things, and then we miss, and we're not walking in our purpose. You can't walk in your purpose if you're walking in discouragement, in negativity. And so at the end of the day, the reason that I think so many people love Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, which was like the #1 best-selling book of all time after the Bible, is because people need purpose.
Right.
And if you're walking in discouragement, you're not fully able to walk out your purpose.
Totally.
And
I feel like for discouragement for me, and he's seen this happen when I've been discouraged about things, I feel like discouragement steals the dreams that I have. And it removes the ability to dream because we're just so discouragement causes us to fixate on a problem, fixate on the negative, and then my dreams have been stolen, or I feel like I can't dream. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's what we want to talk about today. So we want to talk to you
Yeah.
about dreams, about dreaming. I want to encourage you to attend this Sunday in person if you can. Actually, you should register. Go to our website. You can register for a spot. There's only, I don't know how many spots are left, but they're going quick. So get your spot for Sunday, 9 or 11, projectchurch.com. You can do that right now. If you're not comfortable coming in person, we understand. You can watch online 9 or 11 a.m. live on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah.
But we're going to continue this series on dreaming. I'm actually going to be preaching on Joseph this Sunday, which, we've heard so many sermons on Joseph, but I think this is going to be a special one you don't want to miss. But how do dreams, I'm going to ask, so we're going to ask each other some questions. How are dreams, or how do dreams show you who God is in your life? Because, obviously God's given you dreams. But how have the dreams he's given you reveal him in a greater way to you?
Well, typically, I feel like the God-given dreams that have been placed in my heart or in my mind are given to me from him. That sounds redundant, but
Yeah.
we recognize that he is a dream giver, that when you are discouraged, he helps you, give you hope through those dreams by placing those dreams in your heart. I was going to say something else, but yeah, essentially that. Oh, here's another thing. This is what I'm going to say. I was losing my thought, but I feel like there have been times where God reveals how he can make something happen out of the impossible. Most of the dreams that I have are greater than what I feel like I can do in and of myself or on my own. And so he shows how he is a God who is a God of impossibilities. So I think about even the church, I think about different events, I think about even being a parent, he brings people around us to allow these things to take place, but I wouldn't be able to do it by myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I want to add to that.
Okay.
So I would call Chrissy a chronic overdreamer. All right. Now this is like some of you out there, you can relate to this.
Oh, come on.
And we need more dreamers. All right. So right now I'm not.
Chronic overdreamer. He's never told me this.
Hold on. Right now, I'm not discouraging the big dreamers out there. All right. We need more dreamers in this world right now because it doesn't feel like there's many anymore. But my wife, I would say chronic overdreamer. In fact, every time we go to dinner, she's got multiple new dreams. She's re-upping.
Me right now.
No, listen. She's re-upping on dreams that haven't happened yet, but she's had them and she's just reminding me of them. So how do you manage all the dreams? Because I think that there are people out there who are like you. So how do you manage having a lot of dreams, so many that it's not possible to do them all, at least in that moment? And then how do you encourage people who have a hard time dreaming at all? Because I think there's people out there that are chronic overdreamers like Chrissy, so many ideas, so many things, and maybe you get, as a result, it almost paralyzes you because you have so much you could do and want to do that you do none of it. So being an overdreamer, I think, can be paralyzing. And then there's other people who just have a hard time dreaming in general.
Yeah.
So what do you say to both of those groups? Because I think you're in one. I don't know that either of us is in the other, but I do think there's people out there.
Well, first of all, I feel like overdreamer is a little negative, a little discouraging. I would say maybe excessive. That's also discouraging. I think
Excessive dreaming.
I dream a lot, okay? So yes, there's a lot of dreams. And how do I help manage all of them? I think, honestly, by letting go of them. That sounds like let go and let God and seems so Christian-y, but if I try to grab hold of these dreams and make them happen on my own, then I think I'm holding too tightly and trying too hard to control my dreams, and also taking credit for dreams and being like, oh my God, I'm so creative, or I am such a dream. No, these are dreams that God has given me, and that they're his. So we have to be open-handed with them, and then watch how he places some of them within reach, places them in your lap, places people around you and brings people around you to help those dreams come into fruition. So thinking about the things that are in front of you, I have to train myself or have my husband chill me out when I'm going too futuristically, or if I'm just going here. He's like, but what about now? But what's happening right now? What's been placed in your life now? And be diligent and faithful with that. So it's also keeping your eyes on what he's given you. Again, it's always keeping your eyes on God, though.
So let me get to practical with this, because I think that I tend to be more pragmatic. But in terms of pragmatically here with this, one thing that I think Chrissy does well is she verbalizes those dreams, and she has a lot, and they're always coming out. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because it's like, man, that gives us ideas. It gives us the framework for like, oh, it could be this direction or this direction. Almost like you throw it on the wall and you see what sticks, so to say.
Yeah. That's my brain.
So I think that some people, they dream a lot, but they don't verbalize it to anyone. They keep it internal. They don't speak it out, and I don't think that's good either. Mm-hmm. So I say for the overdreamers, I hate using that term, but for people who dream a lot,
Me too.
like, get it out there, verbalize it, share it, talk to people about it, like, because what that does is it helps you formulate how to accomplish those things practically, because people will spitball with you, and I do with my wife. But it also helps you to say, well, boom, I threw all this on the wall, but what stuck? What was like the one thing that really I'm obviously more passionate about? Mm-hmm. And then what's one of those that I could attack right now? And so I think that's where I come in. And Sunday we talked about vision and dreaming, and visionaries versus dreaming. And you know, the passage in Acts 2 when Peter's quoting from the book of Isaiah, and he says, you know, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions. And this idea that we need visionaries and dreamers together. And like, that's what Chrissy and I've always felt like we are. She's a dreamer. I more am the visionary in that I can see practically how to accomplish it. And so I think that we need dreamers to speak that out, because then the visionaries hear that and go, man, because a lot of you out there are more visionaries than maybe dreamers. Like, you could see how to accomplish it, how to make it happen. And then you're able to come alongside, like I am with my wife, and be like, all right, well, let's grab hold of this one, because I think you're most passionate about that. I think this is something we could really tangibly do right now. And then let's get a process, a step-by-step process of how to like see this come to fruition. And so dreamers out there, you need visionaries with you. Visionaries, you need to partner up with dreamers. And we need more of that in the church. And that's what one thing that we love about our church. I think God has built an entrepreneurial mindset into our church. We have a lot of startups, business owners, young business owners, you know, new businesses launching. And what I've seen is
all the time.
God bringing dreamers and visionaries together. And we need that. But those of you dreamers, don't keep those internal forever. You need to speak it out so that it can start to form, take form.
But there are two things that I would caution you of. Number one, don't just throw them to anybody.
Don't throw your pearls to the swine, as Proverbs tells us.
Proverbs tells us not to do that. And it's wise, because there are some people I know that I will not share my dreams with, because they, number one, won't get it. Number two, they'll discourage me. And but I'm not just saying, oh, I'm only
Am I one of those?
No, I tell him everything. So it's the people who I know love me, know me, understand me, and know what's possible or what's not, and who can help me with boundaries. I'm not just saying tell people who are only going to encourage you, because you are also, you know, trying to protect yourself from reality, okay? If you're just trying to say, oh, I'm only going to tell people who are going to cheer me on. I don't just give it to like cheerleaders, but I just be careful to not just throw it to anybody. That was my one thing. But my second thing too was to also not pigeonhole yourself to I'm a dreamer or I'm a visionary. There are moments where you can sometimes be both and in every project and in every dream that God gives you, everybody has a different role to play, and not every dream or project that you're given you're gonna have the same role every single time. I think God is much more creative than that, and I think God can do much more with us if we don't pigeonhole ourselves as one or the other. So
I guess I'm the question to ask her today. Why do you think that dreams often end up looking so much different than we originally think or intend? Because I think that a lot of people have these dreams, and then when they get to a point where they see something's come to fruition, they look back and they're like, wait a second, like my dream looked very different than this end result. So why do you think that is?
I think, again, from what I said earlier, because the dreams are not our own. And if we really allow God to do exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ever ask or think, like he says in Ephesians, right? That's Ephesians, right? Then we allow him to do something greater than we could ever do in and of ourselves. So that's how I would answer the question. I think you should answer that question because we've seen things in our lives kind of pan out slightly different than we thought it would have panned out. So, and maybe give an example of how.
Well, yeah. Well, I think first of all, we're human and fallible.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize that we can have a vision and a dream, but, we only see a small part of the picture, right?
Yeah.
Like we can only see what we have based on our experiences, our past, our skill set, our giftings, our passions, like all those things, which all come together to form a dream that we have and that I believe God gives us. But often, when it starts to play out in real time and in reality, there's all these other factors that come into the mix.
Yeah.
And God saw all those, we didn't. And when all factors come in, it starts to change the dream. And I'm gonna actually use an example. So we have a family member, and we still remember, this was years back, early on in our marriage. We've been married now 12 years, and it was Christmas Eve. Our family's all together, and my grandfather said, hey, let's go around and share. If we could do anything in our lives, what would we do? And so everyone's going around sharing, like, if we could do anything. And this individual, who's a female, said, I would be a model. Like, that was her one thing. Like, that was her dream, so to say. She said, I would be a model. And we were all like, okay, cool. Like, we were young at the time.
And she totally could be.
Well, now, fast forward,
Yeah.
this was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Fast forward, she is an influencer. So she has hundreds of thousands of followers.
Thousands. Phenomenal.
No, hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
Multiple hundreds,
Yeah.
like over 300,000 followers.
Shout out Ella
On
Book
social
Club.
media, right, Instagram. And I wasn't going to say who it was,
okay.
but okay. And she literally is a model, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing it looks different than she thought 10 years ago. Like, she thought, I would love to be a model.
Or even before then. 'Cause
Yeah.
The possibilities for influencers back then were not even what they are now.
It basically didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure her picture of being a model looked different than what the end result is. And yet, I look at him like, dude, she's walking out her dream. That was her dream.
Yeah.
And every day she posts pictures of her modeling clothes. And like, that's her full-time job, makes a great, living doing that. And I'm like, wow, she's actually, what she said 10 years ago came
Yeah.
to fruition. Does it look different than probably she thought?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
None of us saw what it is coming, 10 years ago, except for maybe these
Yeah.
tech guys who figured all this out. But it just is a reminder to me that, we see, but we see through a narrow lens, and God sees the bigger picture. And so when I look back, I'm like, even looking back at our church and what we thought it would be, and then now I'm like, wow, it's so different. Like our church, we had a dream to plant a church in the heart of the city 8 years ago. Now our church is 7 years old. And it looks very different now than it did then. The building we have looks very different than I ever pictured. And yet, like looking back, I'm like, wow, God knew. And I'm so thankful in how everything worked out. So,
You know what other dream I think God's done in your life?
no, I don't.
I think for a second you had a dream that you'd marry a blonde chick.
What?
He was dating a girl who was blonde.
That was not a
And
dream.
I think when people think about their
I
future.
definitely never dreamed I'm going to marry a blonde girl. That was not a dream.
Well, you were dating a blonde girl.
That doesn't mean it was my dream.
But, things just turn out better than ever.
This-
I'm
that's
just
the
kidding. I'm
weirdest-
just kidding.
Comment ever. And very superficial. And
It is,
anyone,
but
I am not superficial in
he's
the
not.
least.
I
No,
just
I'm
wanted
kidding.
to throw in a joke. Okay.
We're all a little
Moving
superficial.
on. My husband thought that fell flat, but you're supposed to laugh with
It
me.
was, and it fell flat. It was just weird. Okay. Especially because you're making things up.
Michael's closing his ears like that. Okay, so I have another question for you.
Okay, go.
So, why do you think that people give up on their dreams?
Why do people give up on their dreams?
Yeah.
That is something that I've thought about because there's definitely been some dreams in my life that I've given up on. And I think that we have to put it in the framework of how many dreams do we have? Because I think that I had a lot of dreams growing up. Like, I dreamed of being an NBA player. Well, sometimes the reality sets in and we realize the dream is not practical or even tangible. Because I think sometimes people are like, whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. Well, I can't change the fact that, and now I'm fairly tall, but I'm not NBA tall, right? I'm 6'3". Can't change the fact that I wasn't as fast.
3/4.
Yeah, I wasn't as fast or as athletic or as skilled or had even the training that some people had at a younger age. There's all these factors. So I quickly realized in high school, like, I'm probably not going to go to the NBA.
Right.
That was a dream, but I do think, too, it was a flesh dream. And so I think we have to recognize first, the reason that people give up on their dreams sometimes is because practically we recognize that, like, oh, that dream was more flesh than God-led, number one. Number two, that even reality, just because you have a dream doesn't mean that you're able to accomplish it. So I don't want to, like, discourage anyone from their dreams, but I think that recognizing, like, man, I have a lot of dreams. I think all of you out there have dreams. That some dreams are flesh. Yeah. Some dreams are because we're influenced by culture. Yep. We're influenced by what's attractive in man's eyes. I mean, me playing the NBA, that was for man, right? Like, I saw money, I saw fame, I saw,
dominating other
man's accolades.
Yeah.
And that all drew me towards something.
Right.
But I also had a dream to be a pastor. And that was something that I knew was from God because I heard God speak. The NBA thing, I never heard God speak. That was like me, my flesh. So I think that it's good to let some dreams die or to give up on some dreams, especially if they're flesh-led dreams.
Right.
And so I think we always have to be circling back around our dreams and saying, like, God, is this from you? Because if it is, I want to pursue it. If it's not, I'm going to lay it at the altar. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to put it at your feet.
So how do people know if it's their flesh dreams or God dreams? Delineate. How do you do that?
For me, it's always coming back to him with open hands, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give this to you. And if I'm open-handed with it, then I know that I'm doing it from a right place, a right heart. I'm not trying to control, manipulate God, force something to happen that isn't from him.
Yeah.
And then I walk in obedience step by step.
Yep.
And so step by step, I walked in obedience. So out of high school, finishing high school, I literally was like, I had a recruitment tape for sports. And I was trying to get scholarships. I had a few offers. But I ended up realizing, man, I'm open-handed with this. These offers are some financial, help. But this isn't leading me to the NBA. I'm not going to make it to the NBA. And then I have this Bible college that I felt like God was pulling me towards, which was also helping me fulfill this other dream that I knew was from him. It made tangible sense. So I think there's so many aspects to it. So I still encourage people, pursue your dreams because I think there's some dreams out there that people have let die that they weren't supposed to. But just make sure it's with open hands, because if it's with open hands, then as we pursue them, God will shut the door on the wrong dreams and he'll open the door on the right dreams. And that's what I found. And what often we're trying to do is we're trying to kick down doors and kick, to open dreams, to make dreams happen for ourselves. And then it's like, dude, this door is obviously shut. And so why not walk through the door that's open? And so for me, there's some dreams that probably some people need to grab hold of again. and renew
Yeah.
and start walking through open doors. And there's some of you out there that it's time to like, let that dream go. Like, maybe you weren't meant to be a professional singer.
Yeah.
And your mom just told you you
Exactly.
were a good singer because she loved you and she knew it would hurt your feelings. She told you were trash, you know?
Right. And it could sometimes be like a not yet, not necessarily a no. And so
That's good, yeah.
in the case of someone and singing, maybe it just means that after a couple years of voice lessons, you know? But I think for me, it comes back to how do we delineate between God dreams and just flesh dreams? I think sometimes it's the community that we're surrounded by.
Yeah,
Because
that's good.
I think that God uses people. He's used people in all of history. Look at the Bible. Every story, every prophet was used. Situations were used. Even the people who caused pain were used in order to help you recognize if it's a God dream or not. So I think the community
Yeah.
that you have surrounding you that is checked into reality. I mean, there are sometimes
good.
dreams can just be lofty, unrealistic dreams, but our community can bring reality to us, and it can just be truthful and forthright. But if we don't have deep connection with people that is centered on God, then we're not going to really know what reality is. And I know
good.
that there are some people who have pursued dreams, kind of going back to what I said, because they surrounded themselves with superficial relationships, and all those people are too superficial and they aren't close enough to you to love you enough to tell you the truth. And
Yeah.
so I think it's huge to be a part of a Bible-believing community, a God-focused community that can help affirm and hear God with you and pray with you about dreams. Leaving dreams at the altar and being open-handed with our dreams means praying over them, even removing any of the control that you can have on them. And ultimately, that's what prayer is. Prayer is giving God the power to do with what he's given us, whatever he wants. So,
that's good. I want to add to that because I think that one thing we do, and we're guilty of it in the church, and so we challenge our staff with this all the time, our team, is that we set input goals rather than output goals. And so I think this translates to our dreams or things we're pursuing in our life. Because I think what happens is we try to pursue, or we just set the output goals. So here's the output goal. Output goal for me would be, I want to be a best-selling author. Okay, now, not to say that that's really something that I want, but that's an output goal. Like, I want a book that sells hundreds of thousands of copies, be a best-selling author. Well, that's an output goal, and you can't actually control that.
Yeah.
But what you can control is an input goal. So here would be my input goal, which I'm actually doing. I'm going to write, 5 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages every week. I'm going to finish writing a book in a year. And I'm going to read a book every month because that helps me to be a better writer. So those are input goals. I can control that. I can write, a couple pages every week, 10 pages every week, 20 pages every week. I can read a book every month. These are all input goals. And then, so I'm working on a book. We both are. As I write, I've done what I can do. I've controlled what I can control. I've done the input. Now the results, those are up to God. Like when I finish this book and we send it somewhere to try to get it published or whatever, I can't control that.
Yeah.
But what most people do are they're just focusing on the output rather than the input. All I can control is what I put in.
Yeah.
My work, my grind, as we talked about Sunday, my hustle, what I'm doing practically with my hands. The results I leave up to God. And so I think that sometimes we get it twisted in dreams that we're so focused on the result rather than the process and what we're putting into the product, which is ourselves often, rather than just what I want to get out of this.
Right.
Because if all I want is to make a bunch of money and be a best-selling author, I think I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
But if I focus on, I want to write every day. I want to write every week. I want to write something that encourages people, that builds people up. I leave the results up to God.
Yeah.
input over output. So
That's good. And also something else you said is that if our dreams are only goals, then we negate the process. And
yeah,
and we stop making life about the journey with God. And if we just make it about goals, we almost start seeing God as a genie who's just going to give us what we want in the end
Totally.
if we work hard enough. But what God wants us to do is to be changed, refined in the grind, like you're saying, changed and refined in the grind and in the process, in the journey of what he wants to do in our lives. And so,
yeah. God cares more about who we're becoming
drop it, babe. Drop it.
than what we're doing or
Yeah.
accomplishing.
Yeah,
It's more
absolutely.
important who we're becoming than what we're doing or accomplishing.
Yeah.
And sometimes our dreams are all about being successful and what we can accomplish and these big things that look great in people's eyes rather than like who are we becoming as people, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day it matters most like what do the people closest to us say about us.
That's
What
good.
are the people
That's
that
good.
know us, and if we lose ourselves in the process of fulfilling a dream, then in my opinion, it was all for nothing. If we become a person that no one wants to be around in the
Yeah.
process of fulfilling a dream, then it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it's fruitless.
Yeah.
And it's sinking sand. And I don't want to lose
that's
myself in
good.
that process. So
And that's a good challenge to all of you who are pursuing dreams right now. Even it's a challenge to us as we pursue even our calling as pastors and as church planters. I want my kids to be in love with us and us to be so in love with them that, our dreams aren't taking away from the most important things of our lives.
Yeah.
So,
all right, question.
the last question probably.
Yeah, we'll probably wrap it up here in a moment. But what do you think about this tweet? I saw this tweet from Tim Keller, and I was like,
phenomenal.
oh, dang, I don't know how I feel about that, but it was good. He said, if God is truly sovereign, then he may call you to a ministry or a vocation in which you will fail.
That's so challenging. It's super challenging, but I think that it kind of goes back to what you're saying with God is more interested in who we're becoming than what we're achieving. And I think that speaks to the possibility that God cares more about our humility than us attaining anything here on this earth. Humility is something that's eternal. Humility
Yeah.
keeps us in who we were always meant to be, one who worshiped him, and that's worship is an act of humility where we're giving something else worthship, like we're ascribing worth to something else. And so if we aren't humble and there's not this humility that comes with failing, then we're only building ourselves up and we are becoming the God in our lives and we're worshiping ourselves. But do you know what I'm saying? So
I do.
I feel like God is, I subscribe to that. Do I want to fail in things? Can he give us success and still help us become who
Yeah.
we're supposed to be? Yes. But I think that's a challenging statement, but also a realistic statement.
Yeah, and the reality too that, we have to recognize and acknowledge that God is sovereign.
Yeah.
Meaning he's over everything, he controls everything, he's Lord of everything. And so him calling us to something, often we see in man's eyes, because he said he may call you to something, a ministry of vocation or job in which you will fail. Maybe it's just failure in our eyes, in man's eyes. And maybe in God's eyes, it was success. I even think about, so my grandfather has a brother, and his name is Marvin Cole, and he was a missionary for, 30 years to this tiny little tribe in South America. And so he went out to this indigenous tribe, out in the middle of nowhere. He lived out there for decades. And it took, I'm not even kidding, almost 20 years before he saw one person converted. But what happened was finally, after it was 18 years or something, and so some people would say, okay, looking at that, he's been a missionary to this indigenous people for 18 years, South America, out in the middle of nowhere, no converts. What a failure, right? Like God called him to go and fail. After 18 years, finally, and I'm not going to get into the whole story of how, but one of the chiefs of the tribe got saved, like gave his life to Jesus Christ, confessed Jesus as Savior, goes back to the tribe and proceeds to lead the entire tribe to Jesus.
Wow.
So now, after 20 years, the entire tribe, in like a matter of, weeks and months, goes from not one person to every single one of them has surrendered their hearts to Jesus Christ, and now they're raising up their children to follow Christ. After 20 years of labor and toiling and serving, ministering in what looked like was failure. And so I'm always reminded that we see through a limited perspective. We see through man's eyes. So maybe what you think is failure is really God doing something behind the scenes and God working, and you may not even see the fulfillment of it. And we said this on Sunday, like often dreams are fulfilled through the next generation, through our children or our children's children. I think about Martin Luther King Jr., who had a dream, and now his children's children are reaping the dream. And has the dream come to complete fruition? No. But has it come a long way since, the civil rights movement of the 60s? Yes. Equality, has it progressed? Absolutely it has. And so the dream that may feel like it's failed or has been lost or has died, maybe it's you started it, but it's going to come to fruition through the next generation.
Beautiful.
So, so we want to give you some, in closing, some questions to ask yourself, because I think a lot of you out there like, man, I have dreams, or I'm trying to figure out my dreams. So a couple of quick questions to ask yourself. First, what is one thing that fills you with joy? I think that if the dream doesn't give you joy, then it's not probably from God. Second, what is stopping you from cutting out something that removes your joy? Sometimes we got things in our life that are holding us back from our dreams because they're robbing us of our joy. And it's like, man, maybe I need to cut that out. Third, what do you believe is possible for you? Sometimes we're, as a big dreamer, Chrissy has a lot of dreams, throws them out there. And then I'm sometimes like, well, what's possible right now? Like, what could we do right now? We could do some of these right now.
And dreamers, don't let that kill you. It's just a realist challenging you.
Yes. So part of that is, what do you believe is possible right now? Or what practical steps can you take right now? Fourth, is this something that can sustain me in the future? I always think about dreams as like, man, is me pursuing this? Could this be part of sustaining my life in the future? Is this something that I'm going to only be able to do for the next few weeks or month or year? Or could this be something that I do for a lifetime? That always helps me in framing a dream. And then, what do you feel is your purpose? So I just want to encourage you guys out there that you would be praying and asking God, God, show me my purpose. At the end of the day, all of our purpose, first and foremost, is to worship Him, right? That everything we do, let every act, that my life, as Romans 12 tells us, would be a spiritual act of worship. That's our number one purpose.
Right.
Secondary purpose is we're here to lead all people to Jesus. As we say, to lead all people to find life and freedom in Jesus. We're here to go and make disciples of all nations. That's your secondary purpose. But then there's a third purpose that I think you got to figure out for yourself, and that we've had to figure out in our life. Because those are the two God purposes, but those two work into anything you do with your life. So if we say those two are my guiding principles or purposes, then whatever job, dream, vocation, whatever it is that I do, I work those first two into that, but then I can pursue so many different things, in those two first and foremost purpose leading life that God gives us, or calls that God gives us. So
Dreams are often related to your purpose. And so you don't have them on accident, and God placed desires in your heart for them. So make sure that those desires are aligning with Him. That's the greatest thing to remember as you're dreaming. So alignment with the Word, alignment with your community, alignment with heaven. Yeah.
And last tip is be patient in the process. All right.
Yeah.
Because it is a process, and no dream comes to fruition overnight. You don't harvest the crop from a seed you planted today or yesterday, right? It takes time. It takes a season until you can yield that fruit and yield that crop. So be patient in the process. So hey, thanks for joining us tonight for this conversation on dreams. We want to invite you this Sunday, 9 and 11 a.m. online or in person. If you want to come in person, register, check out the new building. You won't be disappointed, I promise you. Go to projectchurch.com, but we're preaching a series called Dreamers this Sunday. I'm talking about Joseph, and I'm super excited for the word. But hey, we miss you guys. We love you. If we haven't seen you yet, we can't wait to see you in person very soon. We're praying for our nation in this season, praying against this Rona, that it would die and be gone in Jesus' name. No mo. No more Rona, right? Any final send-offs you want to say?
That's it. We love you guys, and we're going to just continue to encourage you to dream big, dream for the kingdom, dream for eternity. So we love you all. Mwah.
Deuces.
Bye.